All right. So, 3 articles to go through today. And the first is that DeSantis has signed a ban on transgender treatment for minors. In other words, gender affirming care. Now, this should come as absolutely no surprise to anyone who's paying even a modicum of attention to politics and to Ron DeSantis. Because why would he, I don't know, not be a dick? But anyway, let's go through the article. All right. So you can at least see my mouth. All right. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis on Wednesday. Actually, let me try this. All right. Woo. That's a bit. Okay. Wow. I can read it from sitting up here now. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis on Wednesday signed into law a bill that bans gender-affirming medical care such as puberty blockers or hormone therapy for transgender youth, and also enacts obstacles for adults to access treatment. Because we already know from the Don't Say Gay bill that he only pretends to, just worry about the children and pearl clutching about that. He just wants trans people to go away. All right. Taking effect in the third most populous U.S. state, the law escalates a Republican political strategy to pursue bills restricting transgender rights. More than 500 bills affecting LGBTQ matters have been proposed across the country, and at least 48 have been enacted, according to the Human Rights Campaign. Oh, excuse me. Such bills were once mostly limited to regulating changing rooms in women's sports, but have expanded to limiting healthcare access even for transgender adults. In some cases, legislation has sought to charge parents and doctors with child abuse if they provide treatment to transgender youth. Because, obviously lawyers know much more about medicine than actual doctors. I mean, everybody knows that. That's why lawyers also have medical degrees. And doctors don't, I guess. I've no idea what the logic, if there is any. This will permanently outlaw the mutilation of minors, DeSantis said at a bill signing ceremony in Tampa. What mutilation, Ron? Children do not go through mutilation. I guess if their gender dysphoria is really that bad, but that's kind of the point of puberty blockers. So you're banning puberty blockers, but you're also banning surgery. I'm sorry. What? If they could get puberty blockers, then they wouldn't need the damn surgery. It's really that simple. Not to mention, what do you consider mutilation, Ron? What if a child wanted, now, and by child I mean teenager, wanted to have a nose job, whether it be because it's just for cosmetic purposes, or because they were in an accident and they need some sort of facial reconstruction surgery. Does that fall under mutilation? What exactly do you consider mutilation? Because technically cosmetic surgery is mutilation. Yet Nobody says shit about it to anyone else unless it's for trans people. And again, I'm not aware of minors being mutilated. Again, I guess it's possible if the gender dysphoria is that bad, but, you know, it's just children can have horrible cancer and have to have limbs amputated. That's not mutilation, though. Feeling that the breasts that you got after puberty because some dipshit outlawed puberty blockers, well, that's mutilation. Because they were forced to have something they didn't want in the fucking first place. Yeah, that makes so much sense. Okay. All right. I mean, they're trying to do sex change operations on minors. No. No, they're not. Giving them puberty blockers, that they are, and doing things are irreversible to them. No. The irreversible stuff happens after they turn 18. This is not something that happens while they're still children. They have to be 18. Or, like I said, unless things are really, really bad. But that's what gender clinics are for. That's why you go to see a doctor. Kids can't just decide one day, you know what, I'm sick of having these, so I'm going to have them lopped off. You kind of have to have a pretty good reason, and the doctors are pretty good at sussing that out instead of just, okay, sure. I mean, granted, there are probably some unscrupulous doctors. I wouldn't say that that's impossible, but telling people that nobody can do this and giving them puberty blockers, yeah, that's reversible. You stop taking puberty blockers, you go through puberty. It's really not that hard of a concept, Ron. You went to Ivy League schools. You should be smart enough to understand this concept. It's not that hard. And again, puberty blockers have been given to mentally handicapped people who the doctors and parents know that puberty just is that they just wouldn't handle it well. So they give them puberty blockers in hopes that as they get older, they'll be able to adjust better. So again, this is not just a trans treatment. But yet it's now everyone's going out of their way to ban these because trans people need them. All right, let's see here. Surgery for minors is exceedingly rare, thank you, and only occurs after extensive monitoring by multiple medical professionals. But again, Ron DeSantis knows better than doctors because I guess he knows everything about everything. Seriously, why do we have experts if any old schmuck can say, I say this, so it's this? That isn't how expertise works. A group of parents of transgender children immediately challenged the law, filing an emergency request in federal court to block its implementation. Okay. And the funny thing is this is the same person who passed Don't Say Gay, who signed that bill into law because of parental rights. He wants parents to have the right to have a say in their child's education, in theory. This is proof that, no, he actually doesn't care about parents' rights unless those parents agree with him. DeSantis, who is expected to launch a bid for the 2024 Republican presidential nomination next week, has staked part of his political future on cultural issues surrounding LGBTQ rights, which I have read is seriously biting him in the ass because he's really, really trying to destroy Disney. And not only Trump, but his MAGA base is basically like, what the fuck are you doing? Seriously, how is this doing anything? How is this helping anything? So once you've lost those Looney Tunes, you know you've done fucked up. Alright, in addition to Florida, at least 14 other states have banned treatments for transgender youth, although many face legal challenges in the courts. Many Republican supporters of the bills distrust the prevailing medical consensus, too fucking bad, you're not doctors, which endorses gender-affirming care and in some cases considers it life-saving. Instead, opponents of transgender healthcare claim it is dangerous and experimental, with some labeling the measures as chemical castration or child abuse. Which tells me you don't know what words mean. Or what, how science works, or what actually goes into treating people with gender dysphoria, because none of this makes a lick of sense. And let's face it, if we were talking about sexual predator, these people would be the first to scream chemical castration. So I fail to see the problem here. This is the same group of people who are freaking out about trans women in women's bathrooms because trans women are by definition sexual predators. And now they're screaming about chemical castration. Make up your fucking mind. Are these sexual predators, or are they chemically castrated for no reason? Pick a lane. All right. The World Professional Association for Transgender Health, or WPATH, criticized passage of the bill, saying it interfered with the doctor-patient relationship. You think? Florida's bill has created a chilling effect on the medical community by inserting politics into health care. Marcy Bowers, the association's president, said in a statement. The Florida law, known as Senate Bill 254, requires transgender adults to obtain written consent on a form adopted by the Board of Medicine and Board of Osteopathic Medicine, two oversight boards whose members are appointed by the governor and have already taken steps to restrict transgender care under DeSantis. In addition, the new law, which takes effect immediately, grants state courts jurisdiction in child custody battles over transgender minors when a Florida parent opposes treatment that is being pursued under an out-of-state parent. Oh, God. DeSantis also signed into law a so-called bathroom bill requiring all restrooms or locker rooms at public facilities to be used exclusively for people based on their gender assigned at birth. No. Sex assigned at birth. Gender is a social construct. Ugh. So, let me see here. The Florida law, requires transgender adults to obtain written consent. Written consent for what? To transition? They're adults. Jesus Christ. And let's see. And this child custody battle? I mean, no. Custody battles can get messy enough without the state getting involved because, we're going to take custody because we know what's best for a child. No, you don't. No, not if your idea is I transgender people make me uncomfortable, so I'm going to deny this kid the care that they need because they're not getting care that can't be reversed for the most part. Again, like was mentioned in the article, it's possible that these people might need to have some type of surgery, but that's rare. So, and again, none of the state's business because medical associations are in alignment with us. Now, you can say that sometimes they make mistakes, and that has happened throughout the centuries. But it's still not. But you know who fixed that? Medical associations. It's scientists correcting science, not a bunch of plucky yahoos who decided that they know what's best because they've just decided that, they must know what's best because this makes them feel icky. So, yeah, that's the latest on Ron DeSantis. So, let's look at this next article. Okay. U.S. Republican transgender laws pile up, setting 2024 battle lines. Ugh. And another picture of Ron DeSantis. Ew. Ew, ew, ew. My eyes. So, Oklahoma's governor has signed into law a bill making it a felony to provide gender-affirming health care to a minor. Of course he has. Indiana has enacted a law requiring teachers to tell parents when students ask to be called by a new name or different pronoun. Because nothing bad could happen there. North Dakota has approved a law that lets public school teachers and state employees ignore using a transgender person's preferred pronoun. Okay. So, before I continue. First, Indiana requiring teachers to tell parents. Now, in a world where parents actually care about their children, and by that I mean care about their children as long as they do as what the parents feel comfortable with, where I guess then this wouldn't be a problem because parents would already be cool with what their child wants to do if they want to be known by a different name. And let's face it, nicknames exist. Nicknames are a thing. So, does that mean a teacher can't call a student by a nickname because of this law? So, but anyway. But not all parents, based on just because this law is being passed, that tells you that there are going to be parents out there that have a problem with their kids being trans. And if you tell them, you're just going to make this kid's home life a living hell. And that's if they're allowed to stay under their parents' roof and the parent doesn't just kick them out. So, yeah, that's just not in any ways a good idea. The North Dakota law, ignoring a transgender person's preferred pronouns. Okay, first off, let's ignore the fact that screams, "I don't respect you." Let's ignore that for a moment. It doesn't say just the children. This affects adults too. So the public school teachers don't have to. Hopefully most most teachers in North Dakota are not flaming assholes and would use the person's preferred pronouns because they actually care about their students, want to have a good rapport with the parents within reason, and state employees. Now, that I can see based on this law that probably a lot of state employees would be flaming assholes and but why? Even if you don't respect the person. Like hell, I do not respect Ezra Miller, the actor who is going to be in the Flash movie, and but I still try to use their preferred pronouns, which are they, them, because that's just a non-shitty thing to do. To, call people the way they want to be called. You wouldn't want someone to call you by a different name just because they don't respect you. So why would pronouns be any different? I just do not see what you're accomplishing. Despite even if you didn't respect the person, this is just a shitty thing to do. So it's not about respecting the person, it's about respecting yourself and understanding that people are different, and if that's what they want to be called, fine. Okay. And the latest such actions came in Florida on Wednesday when Governor Ron DeSantis signed into a law that bill that bans gender-affirming medical care such as puberty blockers or hormone therapy for transgender youths, a measure that joins the state's growing list of legislation that limits the rights of LGBTQ people. This month's rush of bills certain to attract court challenges has become central to the Republican agenda in state houses across the country and inflamed the so-called culture war in the United States that also encompasses abortion, gun rights, and school curricula. A group of Florida parents have already sued in federal court to try to stop a new law there. To many political observers, these measures offer a preview of the 2024 elections, with Republicans portraying Democrats as out of touch on issues of sex and religion, and Democrats calling Republicans extremist and anti-democratic. Wait a minute. Let's see. How are Democrats out of touch on issues of sex and religion? What, because they follow science and are willing to change when they get new information? How is that being out of touch? I mean, that's just stupid. Republicans have introduced more than 500 bills affecting LGBTQ people in 2023, with at least 48 passing, according to Human Rights Campaign, an LGBTQ rights group. Those numbers are up from 315 bills introduced and passed in 29 passed in 2022. The majority of those bills specifically affect transgender people, touching on nearly every aspect of a transgender person's public life. Some seek to ban transgender girls from participating in girls' sports, which is a legit conversation to have, because if you go through male puberty, there are some permanent changes that going on hormones will not change. So there is an argument to be had. Okay. Others require transgender people to use a bathroom corresponding to their gender assigned at birth. Again, it's sex assigned at birth. Gender is a social construct. Or prevent trans people from changing their sex on identity documents. Now, I can see why there might be a problem with changing a person's sex on identification documents. We should probably ask for gender instead of sex, because if you look at a person, you might not necessarily know their sex by looking at them, because there are people in this world who just look androgynous. And if you don't see, like, on someone who is actually female, you might not see their breasts because they're wearing something bulky. So you might not have any clues as to what what sex you're dealing with. So, but you might be able to suss out their gender because of the way they dress or the way they act or whatever. So, why not just, instead of asking for sex on these documents, why not gender? Now, obviously, with birth certificates, that's different because, well, you don't know their gender at that point. You just know their sex. So that, male and female are sex identifiers, man, woman, boy, girl, or gender. So that's a little messy. So I can see the problem with that. Neil Allen, chair of the political science department at Wichita State University, said it remains unclear whether the transgender issue will help Republicans defeat Democrats in 2024, but that many Republicans are more concerned about an internal party challenge from the right. So, one more thing about the bathroom controversy. I think I've mentioned this story before on this channel, but one time I had to use a rest area in France. We were on the interstate and we had to use the restroom. So, in order to get to there was one restroom. And in order to get to the part that was for women that had the stalls, you had to pass all the urinals. So there was never a problem with that. You just walk past the urinals, the guys are facing the wall, you see nothing. And in the back are stalls for women or men who have to go number 2. Not a problem. So, what is the issue here? All right. Let's see. You have to win the first election first, and the vulnerability of most Republican state legislatures right now is in the primary, if at all. Yeah. Yes, it is. And that's why Republicans are having issues right now, because they have to go super loony to win the primary, but then they have to really backtrack in order to win the general. But people aren't going to let you forget what you said in the primary, because, okay, which one is it? Are you reasonable or are you a fucking Looney Tune? One of those is a lie. So, 2024 Republican U.S. presidential, where am I? Among the governors at the forefront is DeSantis, who is expected next week to announce a bid for the 2024 Republican U.S. presidential nomination. The bill he signed on Wednesday also adds obstacles for transgender adults and grants courts jurisdiction in child custody battles, in some cases involving gender-affirming care. So, yeah. like I said, what the hell, Florida? If one parent has a problem with a child being taken out of Florida to get gender affirming care, well, that's between the parents, not the courts. And the courts certainly, the courts obviously are taking the side of the parent that's the transphobe. That's not the court's decision. The courts are supposed to take both sides into account and what's best for the child. And, have medical professionals testify, which is the way things should work when it comes to medical issues. I've watched anti-trans legislation for 4 years now, and I can tell you that Florida is the vanguard, said Aaron Reed, an independent researcher who tracks the bills. You see it pushed in Florida, and then you see it emanate across the country. LGBTQ rights activists are pushing back. Florida protesters flung underwear at State House Republicans from the gallery with messages such as, "Not your business," and "Leave my genitals alone." Yep. Demonstrators swarmed the Texas House, leading lawmakers to send a bill banning gender-affirming care back to committee. The bill finally passed the legislature on Wednesday. In Montana, protests contributed to the censure of transgender state representative Zoe Zephyr, who was banned from the state house floor by Republican legislators. President Joe Biden's administration has entered the fray. Last month, the Justice Department sued Tennessee to challenge its Republican-backed ban on gender-affirming care for minors, one of several states where it has filed a complaint or supported lawsuits. Some Republicans have said they have momentum. Maybe in your heads. The State Freedom Caucus Network, a coalition of conservative legislators in 11 states, has helped pass transgender-related bills in 5 states. In 5 to 10 years, I feel like the country will look back on this and realize it was a horrible mistake to let gender-affirming care occur, said Andrew Roth, president of the network. I think that's the eventual conclusion of this. I'm sorry. Are you under the mistaken impression that trans people just suddenly popped up once it reached your ears? People have been transgender since the beginning, probably. It's just that they didn't have the language, or they didn't have the access, the ability to transition. But that didn't make them any less trans. Hell, Native Americans have a two-spirit. What the hell do you think that means? Jesus. It's just basically a bunch of Republicans who think things don't exist until you've heard of it. Once you've heard of it, then suddenly it's this newest, greatest thing, and we have to stop it. A recent Fox News poll found 57% of respondents believe political attacks on families with transgender children is a major problem. A Data for Progress poll found 72% of Democrats, 65% of independents, and 55% of Republicans think too much legislation is aimed at limiting LGBTQ rights. So, at least most of the sane people are aware that there's too many of these bills, so that's good. And even Fox News' own poll shows a majority of respondents being against the transgender children, that it's a major problem. So that's good. That is very good. But a Reuters Ipsos poll from March found 55% of respondents agreed that doctors should be banned from providing a transgender treatment to minors, versus 33% who disagree. Now, it doesn't say in this article how that was phrased, because there's a difference between letting children have surgeries when it's not necessary yet, and that they can wait till they're adults and just be on puberty blockers, is different than phrasing it in such a way that it's a free-for-all. So I don't know how it was phrased. The major pediatric endocrinology and mental health associations endorse gender-affirming care, such as puberty blockers and hormone therapy when appropriate, some calling it life-saving for many transgender youth. But many Republican supporters of the bills distrust the prevailing medical consensus, characterizing the treatments as dangerous and experimental. Some have called the measure chemical castration or child abuse. Okay, read that already. And still not. Since 2021, that is a horrible sentence. At least 15 states have banned gender-affirming care for minors. It is catastrophically bad, said Catherine Oakley of the Human Rights Campaign. The number of young folks who are going to be losing access to medically necessary, best practice, age-appropriate health care is really scary. And that is true. And that's the thing that Republicans who have never heard of nuance seem to have a problem with, is that this isn't just a bunch of people, coming together and deciding that someone should have this done or that done, even though they're not ready for it. Nobody's advocating that. What is with these Republicans with this all or nothing attitude when it comes to anything? I mean, people are aware that age-appropriate treatment is a thing. Just like when it comes to sex ed in schools, teachers understand that there's an age-appropriate way of teaching these things. And just because you dipshits don't understand that doesn't mean that other people don't. It just means you have no idea how anything works. So anyway, that was the second article. And this last article I'm going to go over is about Montana. Good old Montana. Montana could sign law defining sex, raising transgender rights concerns. Now, I couldn't find if this law was passed. I know it's passed the legislature. I just don't know if the governor has signed it yet, but I'm gonna say he did. Montana could become the fourth state to pass a law defining sex as strictly male or female and unchangeable, raising concerns among LGBTQ advocates who see such legislation as the next trend in Republican bills that limit transgender rights. Now, technically that's true. And trans people aren't trying to change their biological sex. They're very well aware that they were born male or female. That's why they want to transition as for their gender. They don't want the body that they were given. They either want to change the body or they just strictly want to dress like the opposite gender, which I don't see. Like I said, and I mentioned this on my unpopular opinions of non-binary people video, I wonder how many people, especially non-binary people, wouldn't feel the need to call themselves non-binary or call themselves trans if if we didn't have this strict definition of gender. That gender roles are this for women or this for guys. Men can't wear skirts and dresses and makeup and whatever else. And women can't do this, that, and the other thing. If we just let people be people, I wonder how many of these people would feel the need to transition. And again, I'm not talking about people who have gender dysphoria because that's a completely different issue. So, Governor Greg Gianforte, who has already authorized a bill to ban gender-affirming treatments for transgender minors this year, has until Sunday to sign or veto the new legislation, Senate Bill 458, or return it to the legislature for amendments. Again, I haven't heard anything, so I'm going to assume he signed it. He could join the fellow Republican governors in Tennessee and North Dakota who signed similar laws this year. In Kansas, the Republican-dominated legislature overrode the veto of Democratic Governor Laura Kelly to enact its law. Republican sponsors of the bill say they are not meant to discriminate against anyone, stressing that discrimination is already illegal. Then why do you need this bill? It seems 20 years ago nobody needed a definition of sex because everyone understood what it meant. Yeah, we do understand what it means. Obviously, you don't. But now there's a discrepancy about is sex gender and can I change it? But sex you can't change. Sex is just a fact, said Montana State Senator Carl Glimm, who introduced SB 458. No, you cannot change sex. Nobody is trying to change sex. But gender is a social construct. You were so close to the point and then swerved. So you're understanding that there is a discussion as to whether sex and gender are different things, and then what is the definition. And then you decided to just decide that it must be the same thing, and major medical and psychological associations endorse gender-affirming care and say transgender identities should be respected, while conservative groups claim that children are too easily allowed to transition. No, they are not. Good God. They think that because they have absolutely no idea what goes into it. The Human Rights Campaign, the largest advocacy group for lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, and queer people in the U.S., has labeled the laws as erasure acts aimed at forcing queer people back into the closet, which it is. We fear that these LGBTQ plus erasure acts could be the next type of anti-LGBTQ plus legislation to sweep the country, HRC President Kelly Robinson told reporters this week. These new laws define virtually everyone as either male or female, a determination made at birth based on anatomy and genetics that cannot change. Well, now that you put it that way, yeah, you're an asshole. The Montana law says sexes are determined without regard to an individual's psychological, behavioral, social, chosen, or subjective experience of gender. Dear fucking Lord. So, does this mean that a man who identifies as a man but wants to dress like a woman? And I'm not talking drag right now. I'm just talking about a man who likes to wear dresses, whether it's for special occasions or whatever. Does that mean he's violating this law too? So, sex is determined based on anatomy. Okay. How about intersex people? Explain that one to me, geniuses. I mean, or I heard about this from a from the Vagina Museum. There was a woman, an XY woman. She had XY chromosomes, but she was a woman, and she gave birth naturally. By this law, what is she? A woman or a man? Because she has the anatomy of the woman, but genetically she's a man. So which is it? I mean, do these people... Oh, no. Actually, they don't think. They just want to... They're desperately trying to make life simple. And I get this a lot with people who are talking about basic biology this, basic biology that. Yeah, your understanding of biology is basic. That does not mean that biologists don't have a better understanding than you do of how biology works. So, let's see, where did I leave off? The Tennessee and Kansas law makes no allowance for intersex people, no shit, or individuals born with ambiguous genitalia or irregular chromosomes. Again, no shit. Because, again, Republicans have never heard of nuance. They think everything is black and white, and they're going to force everything in those boxes, regardless of whether they fit in those boxes or not. While researchers say sex generally refers to physiological characteristics and gender is more a social construct, when it comes to federal civil rights law, they are essentially the same. In the landmark 2020 decision in Bostock versus Clayton County, the U.S. Supreme Court found that discrimination protections based on sex also applied to sexual orientation and gender identity. By defining sex so narrowly, you're excluding LGBTQ people from bringing claims in state court based on discrimination on the basis of sex. The laws also stand to limit non-transgender people who have a discrimination claim based on sex stereotyping. Tennessee State Representative Gino Bolso, who sponsored the bill that Governor Bill Lee signed on Wednesday, said arguments surrounding the Bostock decision or federal anti-discrimination laws never came up in the debate. Of course not, because, why debate with facts? This just deals with sex. This bill is not going to affect the term gender wherever it may happen to be used, Bolso said. So why have the goddamn bill? Because no transgender person ever says that they're changing their sex. Maybe once upon a time, because it used to be called sex change operations. The fact is that we've improved our language, so we don't call it that anymore. It's gender reassignment surgery now. And it's not just one surgery. So, again, why have this law if you're going to say that you understand that sex and gender are two different things? Make it make sense. So far this year, Republican legislators in state houses across the country have introduced more than 500 bills affecting LGBTQ rights with a particular focus on trans people. Around 50 have become law, and I think I'm starting to repeat myself for the third time. So that's the last article. So yeah. It's just more Republicans being dipwads about sex and gender, because it's just amazing. On one hand, they seem to understand that there's nuance there. But on the other hand, they don't want to acknowledge that nuance. It just really makes my head hurt. Or maybe it was because I have allergies. But it just makes no sense that you're going to say that sex and gender are different, but make a bill that says that sex is immutable when nobody's claiming that it isn't. Now, like I've said in the previous article, changing your sex designation on documents like your birth certificate or your passport or whatever, I'm icky about that because that's your biological sex. Now, they should actually have a gender marker in your things like your passport. Obviously, the birth certificate is a different thing, but they should have a gender marker definitely on your passport, because your biological sex and your gender are two different things, and by the time you have a passport you probably know the difference. So yeah, I've been, oh wow, this video is almost an hour, so I'm going to stop yapping now, and I will see you guys in the next video.